Hello guys, welcome back to NHL Rumor Roundup, the show where we discuss the biggest rumors from across the NHL. Today we're going to be updating the latest on Loui, Eriksson, Ryan Kesler, Brayden Point, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Montreal Canadiens. Now, since the Milan Lucic for James Neal trade, there's been a lot of new rumors popping across the NHL. So what is the latest on Loui, Eriksson, Kesler, Brayden Point, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Montreal Canadiens? Watch till the end to find out. Now, the NHL world trade rumor-wise has gone full circle, especially after the James Neal for Milan Lucic trade. There's been a ton of new rumors to come out and a lot of new information. Most notably, we have a lot of new information on the Loui Eriksson situation. A guy that's been pegged as maybe a one-for-one trade from guys like Milan Lucic, even James Neal too. He's a guy that Vancouver wants to get rid of, and he might have a new home this offseason. Now, even though the Milan Lucic or even James Neal route is out of the window for Vancouver, the Anaheim Ducks might be the one team right now that'll take Loui Eriksson's contract, and the Vancouver Canucks might actually be interested. Now, Herman Dale of The Athletic ends up saying that the Vancouver Canucks took note of the David Clarkson trade. The trade that sent David Clarkson to the Toronto Maple Leafs in exchange for Garrett Sparks and a 4th-round pick. He says that the Vancouver Canucks might want to take on a contract for a player that might not even play for them. If you piece this all together, a player that's overpaid, not playing for their team, that team being the Anaheim Ducks, and that player is Ryan Kesler. And this whole trade scenario is honestly wacky. I think it does make sense for both teams involved if it does actually happen, if this is a one-for-one trade, but I think it would be a crazy trade scenario. Having Ryan Kesler go back to the Vancouver Canucks would be seriously crazy. I'm not sure if he's a fan favorite there anymore, but he used to be when he was on there. You always love to have that player on your team, even if they aren't even playing for them. But when it comes to Anaheim, to get that bottom six guy for a guy like Ryan Kesler, who isn't even playing right now, again, I think it would be good for Vancouver, it would be good for Anaheim, and possibly both players too. Dale also says that the Vancouver Canucks, if they did retain half that contract, would save $3 million, which for the Vancouver Canucks is very, very crucial. All the cap they can get right now is super important. With guys like Brock Boeser still being unsigned at this point, they can take all that they need right now. And that Loui Eriksson contract is obviously an anchor on that team. Even if they do retain half the contract, still getting that off the team is super important for them. Even at $3 million, I don't think he is worth that contract whatsoever. So for Vancouver, I think that's priority number one. With guys like Milan Lucic and now James Neal off the market, it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening. But I think for Ryan Kesler, they could probably put him on LTR if needs be. His hip is so screwed up at this point that I honestly wouldn't be surprised. Now, finally going away from the Loui Eriksson situation and now advancing on to the Brayden Point situation with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Now, Brayden Point's contract situation has been a big talking point in this entire offseason. Maybe not talked about enough, but we could see a contract potentially coming very, very soon. Now, Greg Wyshynski, of course, of ESPN, says that at least one NHL GM says that he'll be the next RFA signed with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and that is a huge thing to know. Again, when it comes to Brayden Point, him eventually signing in Tampa, I think is expected up to this point, but we still got a ton of RFAs still left on the market that haven't been unsigned, and Brayden Point right now looks to be the next one off the board. Now, of course, a couple of weeks ago, we saw the Montreal Canadiens ending up offer sheeting Brayden Point. Brayden Point, in the end, ended up declining that offer, but the Montreal Canadiens, right after Sebastian Aho, went after him, and I think that was a pretty smart move. While Brayden Point, I don't think anybody really expected him to go to another team besides the Tampa Bay freaking Lightning, it still was a valiant effort. And Brayden Point, again, he's the type of player that you do want to take a risk on. One of the best players in the NHL right now, one of the best centers in the NHL right now, and a fantastic player on Tampa Bay. Now, again, when it comes to that contract, I would expect it to be around a bridge deal, probably 2 or 3 years. Tampa obviously wants to save as much money as they possibly humanly can, and Brayden Point to a long-term deal, I don't think makes sense for him or the Tampa Bay Lightning either. So a bridge deal will likely be coming, and for both sides, it might work out. Now, for the first team in today's Rumor Roundup, we have the Winnipeg Jets, and they're honestly baffling situation to say the least. Now, first off, the Winnipeg Jets might be looking in on Julius Honka, Dallas Stars defenseman, a guy that, as a Dallas Stars fan, has not fit into the organization whatsoever. He could be looking to have a new change in scenery, and the Winnipeg Jets might be the good fit for him. Obviously, when it comes to Winnipeg, they lost Myers this past offseason. They lost Trouba to the New York Rangers. They'll be looking to add a young defenseman that can play a top 4 role, and Julius Honka, in the right situation, can do that. Now, Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun ends up suggesting that the Winnipeg Jets should and will pursue Julius Honka in a trade. And this makes a lot of sense. Again, as a Dallas Stars fan, I would be lying to you guys if I said Julius Honka was a good fit in Dallas, because he just hasn't been that so far. He had a decent rookie year, but besides that, it just hasn't fit in too well. He's shown some promise, yes, especially offensively, but he's never really been able to put that all together. He's 23 years old right now as an RFA, so for Winnipeg, I think this is a great situation, a guy that, again, you can develop well, possibly into a top 4 defenseman next season if you give him an opportunity. For the Dallas Stars, too, it does make a lot of sense to end up trading him. He's 23 years old, he's an RFA, they haven't signed him up to this point, and I'm honestly not sure if they actually will. I think they will end up trading him. I don't think he'll be in a Dallas Stars uniform next season. I think that at the very least. And I think he does show some promise. Again, he was a very highly touted pick back in like 2013 or something. He still has a lot of promise right now and still has a lot to give, but obviously he hasn't been able to put that together. But for the Winnipeg Jets, a team that has a track record of developing defensemen quite well so far, I think Julius Honka could definitely fit, and in a top 4 role, wouldn't do too bad. Now, in a possible trade, I would expect, of course, Honka to go to the Winnipeg Jets. For the Dallas Stars, they don't have too much cap space right now, so I think it'll either be for a prospect or a pick. I would expect maybe a 3rd or 4th round pick if it is a pick, and if it's a prospect, maybe a guy in their AHL system like Michael Spacek. I think that could work out quite well for the Dallas Stars. Again, to get anything for Julius Honka at this point, anything good, I think would be a decent success. Now, hold up a second, we are not done with the Winnipeg Jets, at least not yet. We have one new rumor to discuss, that being about the Winnipeg Jets, and specifically Kyle Connor. Now, Sean Reynolds of Sportsnet ends up reporting that the Winnipeg Jets and Kyle Connor had a lot of interest in themselves in the RFA interview period. Kyle Connor got a lot of interest from different NHL teams, and apparently, according to Reynolds, that hasn't stopped quite yet. So, when it comes to an offer sheet, there is still a lot of interest out there, a lot of different teams that are pursuing him. Whether we'll actually see one signed or not is a big question, but there is a lot of offer sheet interest still out there. Probably not for Patrick Laine, but for his teammate Kyle Connor. Now, Kyle Connor seems like the type of guy that actually might get offer sheeted and might potentially go to a different team. Winnipeg right now, again, is in a vulnerable position with $17.5 million in cap space. It's going to be pretty tough to sign both Kyle Connor and Laine as is. But when factoring a potential offer sheet, I think it can get a lot more complicated. If Connor maybe gets like an $8 or $9 million offer sheet, I think that's goodbye for Kyle Connor right there, because I think the Winnipeg Jets want to keep Laine at all costs. He, I think, is the #1 priority there. While Kyle Connor is a fantastic player, I'm not sure if Winnipeg is actually going for him as much as Laine, which for them I think makes sense. But when it comes to other NHL teams, to get a guy like Kyle Connor for just a few picks, I think is definitely worth it, especially for what he's done in his short NHL career. We've also seen some reports in the past week that these negotiations will likely drag out for a long time. Whether we see an offer sheet or not, these probably won't be done anytime soon, both with Kyle Connor and Patrick Laine. So if they're both going into the season potentially, I personally wouldn't be surprised, because Winnipeg and those two players seem to love to drag it out right about now. The next team we're going to talk about in today's rumor roundup, we have the Montreal Canadiens and their very interesting situation surrounding a potential return of Andre Markov in the NHL. Now, Andre Markov to the Montreal Canadiens is a very special player, a beloved player, and why not? He's an absolute legend in Montreal, a journeyman that's been in the NHL for a long, long time. He's been in the KHL for the past couple of years, but right now when it comes to Montreal, just the NHL in general, Andre Markov wants to be back. Now, Andre Markov right now is a 40-year-old defenseman, but, I mean, still a decent 40-year-old defenseman. Maybe not as Zdeno Chara, but he hasn't aged too badly, at least so far. We'll see if he actually goes in the NHL and what he does, but right now he is still an okay NHL player, I would say. Now, his agent, Sergei Isakov, said that they have spoken to the Montreal Canadiens. They've spoken directly to them about a potential NHL return, and that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, with Markov, he ended up going to the KHL because they didn't want to offer him too long, which I think is wise. He's an old player, and a couple years back, to give him a 2-year contract, I think would be a little bit unwise. But if he goes back to the NHL, I would fully expect a 1-year deal. 2-year deal might be a little bit foolish on his end, because if he asks for 2 years, he's not going to get it. What makes me excited about a potential Andre Markov return is only because he's 10 NHL games away from 1,000. That's literally the only reason I want him back in the NHL, is to get those 1,000 games and mark that off the check mark, because that will be freaking awesome. Especially for the Montreal Canadiens, a team that in some respects does need some defense, and especially some veteran leadership. That good old grit, can't have enough of that. But when it comes to Markov, again, I think he can be decent on an NHL roster. Not this great player, great shutdown guy that he used to be a few years back, but still a decent NHL defenseman that I think could be worth $1 million or a couple million. I think a return for Andrei Markov just makes a lot of sense. Whether it's for the Montreal Canadiens or a different NHL team, I think Markov wants to be back in the NHL. I think a team will give a contract to him. A one-year deal, I think, will be probably a couple $1 million at max. He'll have to take that. He'll have to take what he gets because he is 40 years old, and while he isn't as good as he used to be, he is still a decent NHL defenseman that I think can provide some value and some worth in the NHL right now. But of course, with this video, I need to hear your guys' thoughts down in those comments down below. So let me know what you think about the latest trade rumors on Loui Eriksson, Ryan Kesler, Brayden Point, the Winnipeg Jets, and the Montreal Canadiens. And of course, the big question on to you, which trades do you think will actually happen? But if you guys want some more Grav videos just like this one, you can click on this playlist right here to watch my full playlist on all of my NHL trade rumor videos and all my NHL rumor roundups. But that'll be it for today, guys. If you guys did enjoy, make sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Again, comment down below your thoughts on the trade rumors we discussed in today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Goodbye.